Moving this thing, waiting for our thing to come up on the stream, and then the talking. Yeah, did you see that Mono Red won the MLCS? Ballin'.
Of course it did.
Of course it did. Alright, we're here. I see the stream. Hello and welcome everyone to Gamestate episode 22. It is Monday, December the 17th. And today we're going to be talking about All-Star City all the time because no one else ran a tournament. I am your host, Adam, a winner is you, Ragsdale. And with me, as always, are 2/3 of our cast. The last third will be arriving fairly shortly. But
As always.
yes, as usual. But as standard, I am joined by Stephen Flavel, Poker Pro and Magic Enthusiast.
Hello, everybody.
And Glenn Jones with no webcam, live from the airport.
Hi. Hi.
Hey.
That wasn't me.
That was me.
So, Cedric should be here shortly, or at least that is what he has led us to believe. So before he gets here, we're going to begin with the Standard Open, I believe. The Star City LA Standard Open was won by one Ian Kendall with red-black punching, the Ash Zealot, I have a lot of red spells version. This one featuring the Mighty Hellhole Flailer in a top 8 of 2 4-color mid-range, 1 Naya, 1 red-black, 1 Reanimator, 1 Bant Aggro, 1 blue-white-red mid-range, and 1 Aggro Peasants.
Aggro peasants.
Well, it wasn't Control Peasants, man. We have to draw the line somewhere.
That's accurate. I mean, mid-range peasants is also inaccurate. So.
Alright.
Peasants mid-range.
Yes, I will put the link in the chat. There you go. I want to talk about the Peasants deck a little bit. I don't know, Glenn, if you have any fascinating stories about the Standard Open.
Nope.
Do you, in fact? No? Not at all? Alright, that's fair.
I watched the top 8. That's pretty much about it.
Alright, well, for my part, let's talk Peasants then, before anything else happens. I will put this in the chat. So, Peasants. This is a deck in the top 8. It caught my eye because, as I was saying before the show went live, I had no idea what was in this deck from the deck description. Like, it said something like blue, white, red aggro or something like that, and I was like, I don't know what that is.
Humans, in fact.
Yeah, and then I clicked on the link, and I still didn't know what it was. And, I mean, they're peasants, and they're here to punch you, so what do you think? Is this the new flavor that's sweeping the nation? Is this a one-time thing? Steven, tell me about your peasant thoughts.
Okay. I feel like we should, explain exactly what's going on in this deck. So we have, the basic white humans shell, the champion of the parish, and a bunch of the humans. And then we have 2, aliens came from somewhere and put these things on the deck list. We have a blue splash for Geist of St. Traft, which, you're thinking, okay, powerful card, and Wingcrafter. Now here's the thing. That's a combo. Because, and then we have a red splash for the flashback on Rally the Peasants. I wonder how often you need to cast that card twice. I don't know.
The peasants are revolting. How many times per game do you think you get to say the peasants are revolting with this deck?
Do you think you get to say it if you have no creatures on play when you cast Rally the Peasants? Because I feel like
I definitely would.
Sometimes.
I would be like,
yeah.
I would just be like they're attacking me for lethal, and I would be like, the peasants are revolting.
Sure, they're decomposing.
All right, we're done here.
I actually like my favorite card in this deck by a fairly wide margin is Wingcrafter. I just like, yeah, man,
Yeah.
get
How
that
often?
stuff flying.
How often do you think that's better than like a creature with Exalted?
Very, very small amount of time.
Yeah. Not frequently. It's certainly not better than Spectral Flight most of the time, I think. Like,
But you can't give Spectral
You're-
Fight +2/+0. Like, were you? You can't explain that. Like,
you're right.
True.
You have got me, as I think that's the first
yeah,
phrase.
you have been gotten, friend.
Perhaps my favorite interaction in the deck is
Sure.
Wingcrafter to give Warfalcon flying.
Warfalcon, you may note, not a human, but two great tastes that taste great together. So, alright. Is there anything else sweet going on in this standard top 8? No? Steven, do you have any other standard open reads? I don't want to talk about the Invitational until Sed gets here, really, so might just have to do the other tournaments.
The Peddler deck from whatever European Grand Touch deck made top 8. Corey Burkhart's list. It's like a bunch of Olivia's, Nightshade Peddler, is Staticaster, that kind of thing. I don't really think that deck's that great, but it's different. I mean,
I liked that Red Black aggro won because
Sure.
like it seems pretty clear that this is the only guy in the entirety of LA who showed up with a Red Black aggro deck, and he just won this standard event and wasn't qualified for the Invitational, so he didn't win that one as well.
Yeah, we can ask Glenn metagame questions. Like, were there a lot of decks with red and black in them in like the
yeah,
standard
actually.
open? There were.
Don't believe. Don't
The
believe.
Invitational had like a diminished number, but like early on day one, there were a lot of black red aggro decks near the top. Like Joe Bernal, who was the day one undefeated, was playing black red aggro. So he went 4-0 in standard. I think he does though as well. But then he got crushed on day 2. I think he went 1-3 in standard on day 2. So that largely behind him not appearing in the top 8. But yeah, there were definitely black red aggro decks. I think its presence was diminished in the Invitational as far as like the usual metagame share. But in the open, as far as I know, like I know looking through the standings, like the list we had identified, there were a fair few, but not a ton.
I feel like it's fairly common for Black Red to start a tournament very strong and then get beaten up by mid-range decks, which made it to the top tables, and then like Reed wins.
Because Reed.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that seems like how the tournaments work to me.
it's how one of them worked.
50% of the tournaments worked. Alright, well, let's hop to Legacy then. I don't think Cedric will be super sad about not getting to pick a thing in Legacy. And then if he's still not here, we'll just start on the Invitational, man. We just keep going. Don't give a single damn. But the Legacy Open was won by Jack Fogel with Bug Delver. So this is the bug deck that contains the Delvers, presumably, as opposed to the various other bug decks. I think there are like at least 3 other bug decks. Anyway, in a Legacy top 8 that was 2 bug, 1 control, 1 Delver, 1 aggro loam, 1 lands, 1 Dreadstill, 1 Rug, 1 Esper Stoneblade, and 1 Sam Black. That's all you get. I refuse to elaborate on what Sam Black is. He is his own entity. Steven, pick a Legacy thing and tell us of your Legacy thoughts.
We should get Sam on the show, maybe just for the Legacy portion, so he can explain to like the rest of the world what's going on in this deck.
Well, yeah,
Did he
I was-
always have Goblin Bombardments?
Yeah, he did.
Yes, it's like key
Of
to
course
the
he
deck.
did.
I was saying, it's like, I think the first time he top 8'd the GP or whatever with this deck, everyone in the world took that deck and played 5 games and ascertained that they are not Sam Black, and then we're like, okay.
It
Very
doesn't
good, then.
seem like the sort of deck where your like play skill is going to drag you through somehow.
I don't know, I think there's probably some play to it.
I'm sure there's some play.
There's definitely like play to it. It's the sort of deck where you get to do a lot of things and like eke out a lot of thin margins. And I'm sure that Sam enjoys playing it significantly. I think it takes like a lot of cojones to pack it in the new Deathrite Shaman Legacy format.
Yeah,
Like
just didn't
literally
care
everyone's
about
just so
that card.
excited about playing this card now, and you're like, now's the time. Let's break out the graveyard oriented deck. But I mean, obviously, like it worked out fine. He made it up to the finals, and I know in the finals he was discussing with his opponent. He said, you know, Tarmogoyf is actually way more annoying a card than Deathrite Shaman to have to face. But like even that's really awkward because like you're trying to dodge Tarmogoyf and
Well, no one
Legacy.
plays
Like,
that card.
I mean, it's a fun deck. I've played games with it, and it's definitely like neat and cool. But it's like that deck is probably closer to my Commander deck than it is to a Legacy deck, as far as like the actual games that you play with it, which is not necessarily a good thing for trying to win a tournament, but is a good thing for enjoying it.
And that might be more important, like, for a Legacy tournament. Just in terms of deck selection, you may just wish to pick a deck you enjoy playing. I will say,
What?
pursuant to Legacy, I was a little bit disappointed that this particular Invitational top 8 was not Legacy, because I really wanted to see Adam Prozac count to 10 all over people's faces.
Or sometimes just 9, as the case may be.
Yeah, I heard he counted to 9 once, or actually it was like 8, because the guy paid 2 life
Yeah.
and cast, yeah, which was
Sort
pretty,
of run out
He did it a couple times
pretty
actually.
sick.
I didn't really like everyone was really that play in the last round or whatever thought that was really awesome. I didn't even think that one was that sweet. That was pretty cool. My personal favorite was him actually just doing like 16 against 2 Dark Confidants on like turn 2 and then just crossing his fingers and waiting.
Here we go, boys.
Yeah. Like that's my favorite of Adam Prozac's wins. Just like here you go. Like his opponent didn't have any spells, so his exact argument was pretty good. He's like, well, if he's gonna kill me, he's gonna have to draw his spells every 3 cards. So
I just think that deck is awesome. I think everyone should be playing that deck. That deck looks sweet to me.
it is sweet. I like the addition of Abrupt Decay to the sideboard is a nice one too.
Well, that seems like you just have to do that, because otherwise you can never beat a counterbalance in the entire world, right? Like, they're just dead.
I mean, never's a strong word, but sure.
I mean, yeah. I have played some combo decks against counterbalance, and it is not a fun time. Alright, is there anything else sweet going on in this Legacy? There was an aggro loam deck in the top 8. I don't know. I mean, it's a known quantity.
Next to the land stack.
Yeah, well, it took a slightly more aggressive lands approach than the lands.
I mean, there was the Dreadstill deck. Ooh.
I enjoy 4 Stifle, 1 Vision Charm as his split. Like, he wanted a 5th Stifle, but he didn't want a 6th Stifle.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I get the feeling that I think most people who play Legacy like on a regular basis probably get like a sick joy out of making an opponent read a card. So I feel like that's Vision Charm's primary role actually, just to make someone go, huh? But sure, I'm whatever. You know, it's good.
yeah. Alright. I'm fed up with waiting. Let's talk about the Invitational. Screw Cedric.
Sweet.
The Invitational was obviously both Standard and Legacy, but it was won by the mighty Reed Duke with Band Control and Bug. It was a top 8 of, I'm going to give you 1 million deck lists. The Standard top 8 was Bant, 2 Naya, 3 Blue-White Flash, 1 with Red, Esper, and Black-Green Zombies. The Legacy top 8 was 3 Bug decks, 1 with Agent, 1 Rug deck, 1 Blue-White Miracles, 1 4-color Control, 1 Elves, and 1 Ad Nauseam Tendrils. It was a pretty sweet top 8, as Invitationals are wont to be. They're kind of a big deal. You may have heard of them. But there are a number of stories here. What are we going to go with first? Well, let's talk about Naya Humans first.
Sure.
The first thing we're going to talk about is Ben Weinberg's Naya Humans deck, which I have heard has been kicking around on Moto for a little bit, but this is essentially a green-white humans deck that has added red for Huntmaster and Zealous conscripts, I believe is what's going on here. Let me see if I can get some...
That's the basic gist, yeah.
Yeah, I will get some links, and we will start with Glenn. Glenn, how do you feel about Naya Humans?
Not great. I really don't like the paladin decks in general. I like anathema to anything I want to do ever, as I like to usually cast a creature and feel good about it. But I mean, I sympathize with the deck's ability to do some aggressive things and employ Huntmaster of the Fells, especially against zombies, to like really crush them. Because that card is very excellent in that matchup, and it's also good in other human mirrors. But I don't know. I mean, it's like the most creature of creature decks, and that's just really not my jam. Especially when I don't have a bunch of reach. The most attractive part of the deck to me by far are the Zealous Conscripts, which just steal games randomly from people who don't think to play around it all the time.
Yeah, there was a fairly enjoyable game in top 8 in which Zealous Conscripts just deck someone with their Jace. Like 3 turns in a row, I believe, is how that occurred. Like just 3 turns worth of take your Jace, get you with it.
Oh yeah. That was, I believe, against chat enthusiast over here, Matt Nass. I mean, really, there's not much you can do there. Like, I actually was watching the match, like, out of the corner of my eye. I was covering Reed's match, and I watched them start Game 5, and Ben's opening hand was just, like, double Zealous Conscripts, and I just never paid attention to the match again. And then Ben came up over to me before the finals, like, did you see what I did? And I was like, no, I was, like, doing my job. He's like, it was sweet. And I mean, I'm sure you just killed him by stealing his Jace. He's like, yeah, but I did it a bunch of times. And I'm like, well, yeah, probably like twice since you started with 2 conscripts. Did you draw the third one? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, just murdering you out of the story with every comment I can make.
Glenn Jones
But
hates fun.
it was just very funny to head it off at the pass each time. But yeah, Zealous Conscripts is a good card. I like running one in a lot of my like mid-rangey decks or whatever, because especially with people playing Garrick and getting greedy and making beasts and stuff like that, you just get to take them to Value Town.
So what you're saying is Value Town population Zealous Conscripts?
Sure.
That's where you're going?
This is probably like the best a threaten effect has been in Standard in some time. So, and he's a pretty good threaten effect. Like a 3/3 haster attached is quite good.
Yeah, Zealous Conscripts is a sweet card. I don't know, my initial reaction to this deck was I'm not certain that the red is worth it, but Zealous Conscripts excites me a great deal more than Huntmaster.
I mean, I don't think the deck is worth it, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know Patrick Sullivan was talking about the deck and not a fan. Just found it rancid to be casting Champion of the Parish and Huntmaster of the Fells in the same deck, basically.
But they've got combos, man. Like, you get to put a counter on, get to attack for 2, hopefully
that is
like
true.
4.
You get a 4-mana battle growth with a couple of 2/2s attached.
Comes
That's
with
what we call a ding.
goals. Yeah, absolutely. Alright, Steven, how do you feel about Naya Humans?
Similarly to Glenn, although I'm not sure I'm quite as negative about the deck, I don't think this deck can be much worse than green-white, which is not high praise. I know. I know that that's not high praise, but I think green-white is better than a lot of people think green-white is. So that just raises the bar a little bit for me. I too am definitely more excited about Zealous Conscripts than I am about Huntmaster, and I feel like Zealous Conscripts actually works really well with the sort of the angle you're trying to leverage with the green-white creature deck. So I don't like the numbers in this deck. They don't really make sense to me as far as the plan I want to be chasing with the deck. I'm not going to say they're wrong, because I'm sure that Ben has played the deck a lot more than I have. But I can definitely get behind the concept, yeah.
Alright. Let us talk about the green-black Brian Kibler scavenging, or not scavenging ooze, predatory ooze, some kind of ooze. There's definitely ooze going on in this deck.
There is ooze of a predatory nature.
Predatory ooze, right. So this was Brian Kibler's brew for the Invitational. It also showed up in the Moto PTQ the day after.
It also, I believe, Greg Hatch, top 16 the Standard Open as well, playing it, I think.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, I think he got like 12th or something like that. I know he was playing some green-black deck, I think.
It was in the
But
finals.
This was my actual favorite deck.
Of the, actually not, I said it was in the finals of the Moto PTQ. It was actually the MOCS, but it showed up showed up at the Invitational and has done well several times since then. There is a deck tech in the chat. It is a green deck splashing black, I believe. It has many
Yeah.
monsters which are challenging to kill. Glenn, how do you feel about the base green punching?
I actually, this was my favorite deck that I saw at the Invitational. I'll note that other top 8 competitor Leon Kornacki was playing green black zombies and did pretty well with it in the standard portions. But the most impressive card in his deck by far was Lotleth Troll. Like watching the games, he was just like discarding his creatures very frequently to Lotleth Troll. So it's like clearly those just could have been anything. Like when you're binning your Ralph's Messengers to make your Lotleth Troll a little bigger, you may be on the wrong base color. That's just like the gist I'm getting from the deck in general. So I actually very much liked Brian's take on the deck, and it seemed really sweet. It's one of the decks I plan to start playing on Moto and trying it. Obviously, I am not alone. Other people have also latched on, but you get to play a lot of cards that are just extremely resilient to a lot of what people are trying to do right now. Like everyone moved towards Supreme Verdict being this good card. This deck is awesome against Supreme Verdict. After Vegas, everyone was up on Bonfire of the Damned as like the weapon for the mid-range mirrors. This deck is awesome against Bonfire of the Damned. Like it's just a very good position to be in against like some of the most powerful cards that everyone's trying to play. That said, I mean, as soon as the metagame shifts again, especially stuff like Tragic Slip starts picking up, then you might have a problem on your hands. But until then, it's one of my favorite decks.
Yeah, Tragic Slip seems somewhat good against this deck, but it does seem well positioned against both Verdict and Bonfire. Steven, how do you feel about the ooze punching?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a powerful core, and like Glenn said, it really matches up with the removal that's getting played in this format in a good way for the aggro deck in this case. A couple of weeks ago, I think we were talking about how there isn't a great removal card that hits everything, and I feel like mid-range to high decks have been getting by because the aggressive decks have been so black-red, basically. They're all sort of playing the same cards. This is a deck that sort of shakes that up, and if it becomes popular in the metagame, it's like a pretty big problem to try to deal with it and a black-red deck at the same time. So, yeah, I think it's a powerful core, and it's got what it takes to do reasonably well in this meta. I don't think it's the best deck in this meta, but it's definitely a contender, and it shakes things up just by being there.
Do you think it's like a contender for strongest deck if you're bound by the Brian Kibler paradigm and must have forests in your deck?
No, I don't. Don't like all the decks have forests?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of them, yes.
Yeah, I think that it's just one of the good decks. I think even maybe like one of the better decks right now. But like I said, things change really fast.
Yeah, I know that the guy in the top 8 of the MOCS seemed to be enjoying himself. He was like typing things like, "This is the first time I have drawn this combo all day," while he just like made his ooze fight his opponent's creatures. They are dead. They are dead. Just like whatever thing he happened to be doing. But yeah, it was it was quite enjoyable. It seems like an enjoyable brew.
Yeah, it looked sweet. Like as we were laying it out for the deck tech, I was like actively excited. I was like, oh, I like all of these cards. They're pretty good. Like Predators is, you know, it's sort of essential to the deck, obviously, but it was the only one where I was just like, and then you know you get to the end and you're like, okay, I see what we're doing here. I see what's going on.
You're picking up what they're putting down.
Yeah, exactly.
Alrighty. What else? Do we have any
We
other
have, like,
standard stories?
We have a 1 Swamp, 3 Golgari Gilgate split.
Yeah,
it sort of confuses me.
I quite enjoy that we've switched colors entirely, but we're still in the Guildgate Frown Town. Like, we're still playing a 2-color deck with Guildgates.
I know that Kibler said the Swamp was like the card he actually wasn't sure should even be in the deck. Like that was one of the more debatable slots, but
I'm not a Swamp fan. Not a Swamp fan.
I think that's reasonable.
That makes your Mutilates way worse, though. Like,
yeah.
Do you guys want to talk about Blue-White Flash and Blue-White-Red Flash?
We can.
I don't really, but I feel like we might have to. I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't understand why you would play Blue-White or Blue-White-Red Flash over Bant. And like, I'm not saying there isn't a reason, I'm just saying I don't understand it. I am ignorant, so I wish someone would explain it to me. I don't know if either of you wonderful gentlemen have the read, but
I don't know. Like personally, I like the red. I just didn't feel like the deck could compete with, especially black red aggro, without some kind of like ability to generate free wins in the same way it does, which like you get a lot of the time when you just have Pillar of the Flame and Snapcaster Mage against whatever they do. Like those hands are good, and you can't really do those with blue white. But that said, obviously Matt Nass, Adam Prozac did very well with blue white. And Matt's list had Geist Trap, which is like one of the better ways to get the aggro decks. You can actually race them down. But the purist, Prozac, just decided, I guess he wanted to play his spells better than his opponent like every time and just hope that that was going to work.
don't need no creatures. Just need spells. Alright, do you want to talk about like the different lists of blue-white flash and how they compare?
I just like, what has to happen for someone to put Delver in this deck again? Because it just upsets me every week. Can we like?
I'm not a fan of Delver in this format.
Yeah,
like
I don't
that.
think that's
Delver's-
happening, friend.
Delver's got to be good against someone. Like, if the format was 100% ban control, couldn't we fit Delver in
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
If the format's like
there?
all
Okay,
banned, then
that's all I needed. Just like
You
a
just
ray of
need-
hope.
you need like no Restoration Angels anywhere, and like you don't want people playing any removal spells before turn 4 or something like that. It's just like super grim whenever like all the decks people are targeting to like stay safe against. They're like, oh, I don't want to accidentally die to this deck, so I'll just play my Pillar Flames or Tragic Slips or Ultimate Price or whatever. And Delver's just like, hey man, I'm trying to make a living out here. You don't have to get rude about it. Just trying to keep everyone honest. It's not happening.
I would still play Delver. It would take me at least 5 games with this deck before I could Delver out. Just tell you that.
You wanna talk about main deck Feeling of Dread? Because that is a thing that Matt Nass was doing, which, I mean, I guess it just goes with the Geist plan. Like you're gonna get them with your Geist,
That
and
card is really good. Like, you have no idea
Yeah.
how good that card is.
No, I like Matt's list better than Adam's by a fair bit, just because it can like close out games. It can generate free wins with Geist and Dread. I think Feeling of Dread is one of the better cards to be playing alongside Geist in general. So
It's a real good card. Like, very, very good. Like, I have personally had someone just cast 3 Feelings of Dread against me in Limited. And I just didn't get to play that game. And he was Japanese, so I like instantly realized I had to reevaluate the card, and I was like, oh, the card's real good. Oh, I get it.
the
And
light
I learned
bulb
my lesson. That
went
card
off.
was really good. Your creatures are tapped now. They don't do as much when they're tapped now.
I know
see.
Feeling of Dread is definitely one of the more impressive cards in the blue-white red deck I played against in Vegas that had the Silverblade Paladins and Thundermaw Hellkites and Geists going on. I definitely just like, oh, I'm gonna just randomly lose my ability to defend myself at terrible, terrible intervals.
Found Cedric.
Yeah, we caught him. Hey, Sad. How's
Hello,
it going?
sweet world. How are you?
Not bad.
Yes, sure.
Good. I'm glad to hear.
Alright, so
So where are we picking up at? Where am I joining our fun, wonderful
Well,
conversation?
we diddled around a little bit with the Standard and Legacy Open, and now we're moving on to the Invitational and just sort of hopping around the top 8. I don't think we've talked any Legacy yet. Talked a little bit about Standard, various Flash decks. We talked about Naya Humans. Do you have any just sort of overarching thoughts? Oh, we talked about Kibler's Oozes and how they punch people.
Them oozes, huh? Classic oozes.
Yes.
That deck looks terrible, but quite the oozing taking place.
I don't think you understand. The Ooze is indestructible, friend. It cares
It is.
only for fighting. It cares not for your creatures.
Every time I saw the ooze come into play, it died to a tragic slip. It was kind of embarrassing. Maybe that's not
Every
something
time?
that's gonna happen a bunch. But every time I saw an ooze, I saw it like 3 times. I was around in between breaks doing coverage. I'm just like, yeah, ooze, yes, this guy can't attack. And then it's like tragic slip, keep attacking. So that was kind of depressing, honestly.
Can an ooze even slip? Like,
I
it
don't
seems
know.
it
You would
seems
think
like it
that would
shouldn't be able to.
Yeah, it's very strange, but
It's quite viscous.
Yeah.
I don't know what that word means.
You're supposed to just be like, yeah, it absolutely is. It is that thing you said.
I do not know what that word means. But you guys, yeah, continue along. I'll join in here. I don't want to interrupt anything.
Well, I was gonna ask right before you join. I was gonna ask if you people would be put off playing Bant because you need to make your opponent play faster to not get draws. I think like that is a thing you definitely need to do to play Bant. Or do you think that's just not a thing that you need to do, and I'm like totally off base?
What if you always win game 1?
Well, that's a route you can take, but you may want to account for the matches where you don't win game 1.
Yeah.
I think
Not
that
a problem for Reed, let me tell you that.
yeah, I think if you're gonna play Bant, which I do consider to be one of the better decks in the format, you do have to know what you are doing in like every phase of the game, as you guys saw over the course of the weekend. Reed certainly did. There are some other people, of course, who do, and Owen Turtenwald and Shahar Shenhar, even AJ to a lesser extent. But yeah, you have to play the deck like very quickly and like systematically, and you can't really think about like, oh, am I gonna Azorius Charm here versus like what I'm supposed to do? I'm not really sure, and like balancing things out. Whereas like when you watched Reed play in the top 8 and the other matches with that deck, he just knew what he was doing every turn of the game. Like, you have to be like that when you're playing the deck, I think.
I don't know. I feel like I think you're obviously correct. You definitely need to know what you're doing, and you can't be in the tank all the time. But I feel like even if you're playing fast, if your opponent is playing slow, like you can still end up with a draw. If you aren't just like you need to play faster.
Call that judge, baby!
Right. I mean, I don't want to have to call a judge on my opponent for slow play like 3 times in my match.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer not to either, but I mean, if you're there to win the tournament, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, right?
I guess that's one approach, yes. One thing I could do is not register a Bant deck for this tournament. That is a thing I could do.
That's definitely true. I can't argue with that.
I don't know that I really believe that's a huge problem. I think if you play crisply with your Bant control deck, you'll be pretty much fine.
Think so? Alright.
Yeah.
I certainly don't know, so I'm willing to believe that's a possibility.
I mean, it's not Legacy. You don't have to shuffle a bunch. You just, like, put all the cards in your hand. You don't, like, pick one of them out of your deck and put that one in your hand.
You might occasionally Farseek. I mean...
Yeah, once or twice. But I think overall the turns play out pretty quickly with Bant control. And, like, you can say, like, he's Reduke, he's the best guy in the world, and that's why he knows what to do at every turn. But I think if you're going to get to a level where you can take Bant control to a tournament, you're going to be playing almost as quickly as Reed is. Like, there aren't...
Just make your
The thing
decisions
about a
less
deck like
well,
that-
but do them quickly, man.
Well,
like...
the thing about a deck like that is that the reason you're drawing all these rounds is that it takes a very, very long time for you to win after you've won. If that makes any sense, like, you still only need to play 6 or 7 turns perfectly, and then you've won the game, but it's going to take you another 10 turns to actually win. And so you see him making tons of decisions and stuff, but in actuality, like, there are several things he could do, and they all have 100% equity and whatever. I don't mean to belittle Reed here. Like, maybe he is picking up 0.5% equity somewhere over the average player in turn 11 and 12, but for the most part, I think the decisions are not that important as the game goes longer.
I mean, I think that's accurate. Just watching like how he handled stuff like his opponent casting Garruk or whatever, you know, he knew exactly what to consider like an actual real threat and what to not. Like, I think most players, you know, your opponent's casting Garruk with like random guy on the like 4/4. I think he had a Locksmith Smart on the field. You know, you might be a little hesitant to just let that resolve, but Reed's just like, okay, like it just lands and it's like, all right, we have our problem just handled, I guess. Like, he knows the 4 cards aren't going to be good enough. He knows the beast isn't good enough. Like, nothing's good enough. And he's making those decisions like way faster than anyone else I saw playing that deck. Like, it was awesome to watch and to cover. Like, he played at a great speed. Even though like the match, I think their 3 games in semifinals, for example, took like just shorter than the 5 games in the game to the right. But I think that's saying something considering that deck was like Naya humans against Matt Ness's Geist decks. So
Yeah, there was a lot of his opponent cast Garrick, and then he let it resolve and won very easily in his matches. He was just like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, there was a lot of that this weekend from his deck. And that's supposed to be one of the really good cards against that deck, too, and he just didn't care at all.
Did not care at all. Alright, what else have we got? Oh, yes. This is an excellent question. I wanted to talk about why it seems like none of the top/name players are playing red-black, even though it put up really good results. It is, in fact, huge in Japan, as they say. So, why...
Which means like 5'10".
Yes, it's mammoth. Why do you guys think that none of the... Who's holding the flag for red-black right now? I mean, some gentleman who is not yet a household name won the Standard Open with it, but we did not see it in the top 16 of the Invitational. No one is holding the flag. Why do you think that is? We will start with Glenn. Glenn, why is that?
I don't know. I mean, people don't really. It's not like a deck anyone loves. Like talking about we can go to Reed with Bant Control. I know, like someone, I think it was Jonathan Job, actually asked him like, what's your record with this deck? And Reed just like could tell him how many losses he'd had in major events because he just played the deck in like all of them. And it's like he found a deck he liked. He likes it. He plays it all the time. Nobody's really identified Black Red on that same level. Like even the people who are having success with it at the Grand Prix level are mostly just like dudes rather than name players who are really into doing this stuff.
Alright, Steven? Do you have a theory?
I don't know. The thing about Black Red is that it's very beatable, I think. You can beat it in 2 ways, and we've been over it on Gamestate before, but you can beat it pretty effectively by going into mid-range and playing your Thragtusks, and you can beat it pretty well by going lower than it and just playing the like mono red aggro, just attacking you faster than you can attack us. So it's not like an affinity aggro deck where like it's very clearly the best deck in the format and the counter strategies just don't work. It's like a linear aggressive deck which is sort of unappealing to play to a lot of people and then doesn't even win against a lot of the decks that people are playing. So given all of that, I can definitely see not playing it at the tournament. Like it doesn't puzzle me that it's not showing up. But I do feel like it's underrepresented. And I feel like, okay, there's another thing to say here. The fact that Black Red is underrepresented doesn't mean more people should be playing Black Red. Because I think what's happening is that Black Red is underrepresented, and that means that mid-range is actually overrepresented. There are too many people playing mid-rangey stuff which beats Black Red, which means there's no way you should play Black Red ever, right? But I think you need to be playing the higher end control decks which prey on that mid-range stuff and lose to Black Red. And until like tons of people are taking on ban control, and maybe that won't happen because they don't want to time out every round and they don't want to play that deck, I don't think there's actually that great a reason to play Black Red in the format in the meta right now. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Cedric, why are name players not bearing the flag for red-black/black red?
Because name players never bear the flag for aggro decks. That's why. Because we rarely ever see a name player playing a deck like this.
I think you're a name player, Cedric.
Oh, Steven. So nice of you, but most people don't, so as kind as you are being. The name players, if you were to go into a tournament, at a Grand Prix or whatever, say there's a standard Grand Prix this weekend, who do you think is going to be playing Black Red? Paul Reitzel? And then, like, no one else? Like, maybe he can convince Sperling to play it too? But, you're not going to see LSV or, Ochoa.
It's right in his wheelhouse, man.
Yeah, or, Jerry or Todd, or, any of the pros that go to the Grand Prix in the States, you're not going to see any people playing this deck. And, you won't even see really Kibler even playing. He's always,
no
Ooze,
Forest
obviously.
in this deck.
Yeah, no Forest, not interested. People just don't. None of the pros ever do carry the flag for this deck unless it's completely busted and you don't have an option. Like what Affinity in days past where it was just like if you're playing anything else, you're stupid. But
Well, the funny part, I mean, you say that, but like the number of people who were just putting Molder Slug in their deck and were like, no, man, they can't beat this Slug, like, was actually unreal.
yeah, it was
Like,
a lot higher number than it should have been. That's for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But it's just like
How
you
much
don't
of
really
that?
see. It just doesn't ever happen. And it's like we've seen this like time and time and time again. It just doesn't happen. Could you imagine a world where like this is like very clearly the best deck, and Pat Shapeman's just like, yep, sleeving it up, gonna play it because it's the best deck? Just, no, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
it
how
is.
much of that do you actually attribute to like the archetype of aggro deck is just like something they don't want to play versus they don't want to play a deck that's just such a known quantity and not like as adaptable as most strategies, you know?
I think it's more
Like I
of a
feel like
situation.
pros.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I feel like most top tier players like want to adapt their deck and like they have an edge against the field, and I think that traditionally the linear aggro decks will always provide less room to do that than most. If you think, do you think that's a fair assessment?
I mean, I think that's a fair assessment, but I think it's just a situation where like players are just like those like really skilled players are just too proud to play linear aggro deck, even if it is the best deck in the format. They just like won't do that because like there are all these cards that allow them to draw cards, and eventually I'll draw to these like 1-ofs and 2-ofs that I put in my deck, and then I'll be able to outplay my opponent and all this stuff. Where like in reality we keep seeing like these lesser known players, and you can even make the argument of like lesser skilled players just winning with this quote unquote mindless linear aggro deck, and the reason they're winning with it is because it is just a very, very good deck. I know that Matt Nass brought up in the chat that Jacob Wilson ended up going 2-6 with red black, and that might be, and it's not because he's not a good player, obviously, but how much experience does he have playing aggressive decks? How much experience does he have playing a red black deck? Mulliganing with aggressive decks is a skill in and of itself, as we've talked about on this show. So, to see him go 2-6 is one thing, but it doesn't really mean that much to me to see him going 2-6, other than just seeing those numbers, because you don't know what kind of experience he has playing that kind of deck. I just don't understand why, like the best players in the game will just not play like a linear aggro deck, even if it's the best deck. Like that's something that happens in the U.S. a lot, but it doesn't happen in Japan, which Adam you brought up. Like we've seen many times where like Tomohiro Saito, I believe, and I'm sorry if I get the Japanese player wrong, it's just like, yeah, red's the best deck, just gonna play it. This is just the best deck. I don't care if it's like an aggro deck. It's just awesome. And then he plays it and he just does very well with it. Whereas you would never in a million years see Chapin do something like that. Or a lot of other players like that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. Just go like, yeah, this is pretty clearly the best deck, and then just not play it.
I'm actually kind of curious as to like whether brand even plays into that on some level, like we obviously like people, Magic players especially, like have brands within their various communities, and Chapin has built one definitely on playing like the kind of decks that he plays. So and everyone has to some extent. I wonder how many people actively consider like I don't think my fans would want to see me playing this deck, like versus this deck gives me the greatest EV in the tournament. Like that has to be a consideration for some people. Sure.
Every deck choice.
Sure.
What are the fans?
I mean, I know personally, like I am always mono, just like looking for something that will give me the best EV. That was like how I even got my deck for Vegas. Was like I didn't know anything, so I just told Brad to give me something he thought was good because I knew he knew more than me. That was all that mattered. Like just getting more knowledge. So.
I mean, it's a shame that brand argument is something that you can make, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all because it's definitely true. I've heard stories of, like Caleb Durward, basically had a discussion with someone where it's like, it's more important for me to play like a goofball deck than just the established best deck, like to build my brand. And it's just like, well, I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, do you hear the words that are coming out of your mouth? That's ridiculous. The best way to build your brand is by winning at Magic more than anything.
If you think about it, like that is actually for Caleb, especially like he does have that going on. Like the people first learned his name when he was like pioneering legacy decks in Grand Prix. Like that's how we got to know Caleb Durward in the first place. And like his column always has weird decks, so like that is how people associate with him. Now does that mean he has to, play standard like normalized decks in tournaments? Like no, I don't think so. But at the same time, it's got to be a factor, right? That like people will follow him, like they want to see what he's doing. They want him to be like out there proving what he does is like valid, basically. I think. So I don't know. Like I don't know if it's bad or good. Like it's just kind of like an odd thing.
Yeah, I mean, it is just, a different angle, I suppose. You know, like Caleb is like the best example of that, and you can also bring up Conley Woods. That's how he got established, or whatever, is
Yeah.
with kind of his off the wall decks, and now he doesn't really, do that anymore. Ever since he's been on the Channel Fireball team, we saw him brew a little bit for the last GP that he top forward with his 4-color Naya deck or whatever. But like outside of that, he hasn't really done that at Pro Tours anymore, playing these like wacky decks. And the times that he has, like once, like at the beginning when he was on the Channel Fireball team, he just didn't do very well. So as he's moved away from like trying to set himself apart by being like this goofball with these weird decks and just playing like real decks, people just like associate with him just being a very good Magic player now, instead of this guy who's like, look at me and my destructive force deck that I'm trying to win this Pro Tour with.
Sure. I guess there's also the argument that like being branded as a player who likes aggro is not profitable. Like obviously not a lot of people, are in that group, so we can't really characterize them that way. But like people don't know Kibler as an aggro player. Like they know him as the green player. Like he plays those decks a lot. So like that's obviously a different association, and people by and large seem to like associate really strongly with control decks and combo decks and just weird funky decks versus like linear aggro decks. So maybe it's even that like on some level it's just like less attractive to fans to like have someone who champions the linear aggro deck. I don't know.
And I mean it also go ahead.
I was just gonna say be the expert on that one, since like you were playing Kithkin, obviously like that's like I think identified you very strongly for, like you were like one Kithkin, people weren't, and this I think like similar things, but I don't know if it's like always receives that kind of strong response.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? Like, Caleb's trying to set himself apart as being, like, the guy who plays the goofy deck, where, like, I wasn't trying to set myself apart as, like, this maniac who always plays Kithkin in every single tournament, more so than I was just like, yeah, this deck's very good, and that's why I'm playing it every tournament, or at least I thought it was very good. I wasn't trying to be like, hey, man, Kithkin is sweet, and you should come on aboard the set train. Because if you like Kithkin, I'm the man for you. Like, it just happened to be coincidence that that's the deck that I was playing, because I didn't think any other decks were very, very good, so...
Yeah, that's fair. It's just kind of odd how the choices we make lead us to some very strange places, I guess.
So when I came up in Magic, aggro was cool. What's up with that?
Back
What
in
happened?
the day.
Yeah, aggro was like Infinity, it was mono red, there were arc sloggers. You just like, you put the Chrome Mox down, you put the Mountain down, you hit them with the Slit Firewalker, and there is no better feeling.
Well, some people just want to watch the world remove a counter from their sun droplet and gain 1 life.
Yeah, just want to watch the world friend the last Tron piece.
Yeah.
I don't know, they make all these crazy control cards nowadays, not like these big splashy effects, and I think Planeswalkers really does play a role in this as well. It's just like all these big splashy, look what I can do. Like, and like those cards, like the aggressive cards, like they're not big and splashy, and like when a good aggressive card does come around, like Ash Zealot, no one's excited for Ash Zealot, even though it's like the best red drop we've had in like 5 years, like the best red 2 drop. Who cares? But it's like people see Vraska and they're just like, oh my god, this card is unbelievable. And it's horrible. It's so bad.
I think you're right about that. The argument has a lot of water. Like the cards that people are actually, being sort of tricked into liking are definitely like very rarely aggressive cards, like Ash Zealot Controller in too recent memory, and like people identified pretty strongly with Lot Troll off the bat, and then as soon as like he didn't prove himself, he was just like out the door. Nobody gives a shit about him anymore.
Sending him directly to the doghouse. Well, he's sort of back. I mean, there was a green-black zombies deck in this top 8. He's somewhat returned.
Sure. I mean, like now he's back in gear or whatever. But like when nobody was playing it, like there weren't calls for like where's this card? Why isn't it showing up? But like I think the more controlling cards, especially Planeswalkers specifically, they get those calls like significantly more.
Do you think creatures being better was actually worse for aggro?
I do. I think the mid-range creatures tend to be better. And it's really hard for aggro to pass them.
Yeah, I agree with Steven. I think it has to be worse because, like, if creatures are the best thing to do, then, like, your opponents are just going to naturally have defenses against your own because they're playing their own. So, like, even if theirs aren't that well positioned or whatever. You know, they still block.
Yeah, because pursuant to your point, when I think about how Magic has changed over the last 5 years or whatever, the things I think of are one, creatures are way better, and two, planeswalkers are things. And it doesn't seem intuitive to me that creatures being better would make your aggro decks worse, but I think it actually does. Like, it just causes your environment to
Yeah.
be such that suddenly attacking with tiny monsters is not quite as good as it was before.
Sure.
Or enjoyable either.
Yeah. Losing with a linear aggro deck is not a super fun experience.
No, really isn't. I mean, it's hard to say if winning with one is like that fun of an experience either. I mean, like I guess like winning always feels good, like to a certain extent. Excuse me, to a certain extent. Like if you watch the top 8 of the Star City Games Standard Open, where Ian Kendall was just beating the tar out of his opponents with his red-black aggro deck, just none of the games close at all. Like I guess that's a good feeling. It depends on who you are. I mean, I get enjoyment out of that kind of thing, just beating the crap out of my helpless opponent, but maybe not everyone does. Maybe people enjoy, like, winning with their mid-range deck or, dragging a game out and just, taking people to the frown yard like Reed does. So, I mean, I guess, people get different enjoyment out of different things. I personally love the clinic that Ian put on. Those two people. Just a one-sided ass beating. It was unbelievable.
Do you like Hellhole
Man,
Flailer?
if it's not established during game one that the match is going to be decided by one of us timing out, I don't feel like I've played Magic.
You want to get the full amount of value out of your timed rounds? Like,
Absolutely. We have 15 minutes for a reason, friend.
That's completely fair.
do you like to flail, Cedric? We didn't get to talk to you about the flailing.
Oh, a Hellhole Flailer?
Yeah.
It seems pretty sweet. I like to play with it. I think like the 3-drops are either going to be the 3-drop in that deck is either that or Rakdos Keyrune. Both have ups and downs and that sort of thing. But the games that we watched with Hellhole Flailer in play, it just looked like it was completely ridiculous. It was like a card that actually got to trade with Restoration Angel, which is like a pretty big deal, and just like the threat of it being there to just toss it right in your opponent's face was also a pretty big deal. Of course, there are some downsides to the card, but like, if you're basing it off of just the 2 matches that we saw Ian play Saturday morning, it just looked completely bonkers. So it's something I'd like to give a try.
Are you persuaded by the fact that you can reference the inflatable car dealership arm whaling flaily guys with that card? Does that play into it for you?
No.
Well, you're a sad person. And
I have a terrible life.
Yeah.
I agree.
Alright, that's fair. I want to talk
That's
about...
what they look like.
Yeah, it is. You did a wonderful impression, Steven. I thought you did a good job.
I think you did a very good job.
I want to talk about Bug and the inclusion of Shardless Agent in these Bug decks, which we saw from Todd Anderson and Jerry Thompson. Did we see them anywhere else? Was that a Todd Anderson and Jerry Thompson specific thing?
There was one player in the top 8 of the Legacy Open playing a bit of a Bug brew, but he was going through like the AJ Soccer card advantage backdoor. He had Baleful Strix in his deck as well, so you can cascade into Baleful Strix, draw a card, draw your Ponder, cast Ponder, and it was all free. And who can keep up with that kind of card advantage? Nobody!
No one. The game is over when the owl arrives.
Yeah.
Alright, let's talk about Bug with Shardless Agent versus Bug without Shardless Agent. We will start with Glenn. Glenn, give us the wisdom on Bug with and without Shardless Agent.
I don't know which of these is better. I definitely regard the ones without it as a little slower and capable of. I think they lean more on the Planeswalker, like specifically being able to Liliana and Jace people to death is nice. The one thing that and I know I talked about this with Peace that actually is kind of just bizarre, is like Tarmogoyf. You're joking about Baleful Strix, but I almost would just rather be playing that card than Tarmogoyf because my deck's trying to generate so much value and card advantage, make removal bad, and then I'm playing the one card that just makes every removal spell pretty reasonable, which is Tarmogoyf. And obviously is a big beater, he closes out games fast, but I don't know, it feels like there's just got to be better things to do with what you're cascading into and your creatures, even if it's not better all the time, just it's not just always Goyf, mediocre. I just saw Matt Nass's comment. Goyf is an unplayable card in Legacy. Boarded it out every round. Yeah, like that sounds awful. I agree. Like, I don't want to be like Shardless aging in Tarmogoyf. Like that's not why I'm playing a 3-mana 2/2 in my deck to get like a free slightly better than a 3-mana 2/2 into play.
But
I want to
Glenn,
get
it's
something
like you're playing
significantly
8 Tarmogoyfs then.
Oh joy! Unfortunately, I can only board out 4, so.
Oh man, that's...
You guys are
it's
gonna.
it's deceptive. I think Goyf is a deceptive card in that like you get so much power attached to like a reasonable cost, and it wins games relatively quickly. But you don't realize you could have won those games like slower, but just as often, while winning more games with a different card.
You guys are gonna make one Sam Black very happy by taking all the ghosts out of your deck, man.
That's true.
He's coming for you.
This is also, by the way, coming from someone who is like almost certainly buying Tarmogoyf like in the next week and a half on Moto. So it's like I'm very unhappy about this concept because like I think it's just very strong and modern, as despicable as it is. But like in Legacy, I just always want to be doing something better than casting a Tarmogoyf.
All right, Steven, how do you feel about Bug with Shardless Agent, or perhaps without Shardless Agent?
To me, the most exciting card that's different in those lists is actually Ancestral Vision, which you put in the Shardless Agent lists because you can cascade into it, and it's pretty good to do that. But I guess the card just doesn't quite cut it without the agent as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that were I choosing how to build my deck, I would almost be structuring it around whether or not I thought turn 1 Ancestral Vision was good enough in the format. And if I did, I think I would be headed toward Shardless because that interaction seems so powerful to me. And if I didn't, I'd probably leave it out. It's my read.
Alright, Cedric, how do you feel about the Shardless Agent conundrum?
Alright guys, brace yourself, okay? Are you guys ready?
I'm prepared.
Okay, because I think this deck fucking sucks. And I know that's a real stretch. Yeah. Yep, the real stretch for me here. But I don't get it. I just don't. It's like these bug decks, they just feel like to me they don't do anything. And I understand that they have like some pretty good cards in their deck, you know? Like, you know, they got Deathright Shaman, they got Abrupt Decay, they got a little bit of Tarmogoyf action and some discard and other stuff. But honestly, like, in reality, to me, this deck seems like it is just one of the worst Jace decks that you can play, as it seems like Jace is like the best card that this deck can be doing, like the best thing this deck can be doing, and it just doesn't seem like that good of a Jace deck to me. Like, I understand why this deck, like why people are playing this deck and why it would be good. Deathright Shaman's a good card. Decay is a good card. You know, it's got, you know, a bunch of discard and, you know, it does like some proactive things, and you know, blows up the opponent's hand. It can't stop the top of the deck for the opponent, and it also seems like Sensei's Divining Top is, you know, seems like a nightmare for this deck because you're just blowing up their hand, and then they have top to like make sure you don't blow up their hand very well. But you know, like I understand, and I talked to Jerry quite a bit over the tournament, like why he decided to put Shardless Agent in his deck and Visions, like, you know, that gives you a better spot in the mirror, which is nice because like Visions is awesome in the mirror because it's a super attrition-y, grinded out matchup. I don't know. I just don't understand. Like, I just deck just doesn't seem that good to me. And like, I understand like why Shardless Agent's in the deck. It's a card advantage, and when you hit Visions, it's just like yes, I love it. But it just doesn't feel like it's doing anything that great. And Glenn, you're like your argument for Tarmogoyf, I agree with like wholeheartedly, and it seems like that's like one of the backbones of the deck. Of like being able to like make your opponent discard a bunch of cards and then like you get to clock them with Tarmogoyf. So it's like it's basically like a Team America deck that we've seen in years past. But I don't know. It's just like with Abrupt Decay being the format, Tarmogoyf has gotten significantly worse. And like this blue deck doesn't even do a good job of protecting itself because it doesn't get to play. It doesn't really get to play Force of Will. Because like it really can't make up the card disadvantage. As we saw, a lot of the bug decks didn't have Force of Will in their deck. In their main deck, it was in the sideboard. So, like, I don't understand how it gets ahead on cards or anything, like, outside of Ancestral Vision, which not everyone is playing. And then with Tarmogoyf being so easy to kill now, like, it seems like it has a really hard time clocking its opponent. And the best way to keep control of your opponent, it sounds like to me in this deck, is Jace. And it's not even the best Jace deck. So, like, what's the appeal of playing this deck to me, I guess? Like, Abrupt Decay and Deathright Shaman, which a lot of different decks can play?
Winning.
Ah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. That's a good thing to do when you're playing Magic. Is win.
I
The
feel
thing
like,
that actually, like... Sorry, Steven, you can go ahead.
all right. I feel like often when a deck is good at doing more than two things, you like interpret that as the deck not doing anything, and it confuses me. But I find it like, I don't know. I think this deck does like several things very well, and then it wins. So
I think it does like some things like reasonably well. You know, like it disrupts its opponent with discard. You know, it's obviously a brainstorm deck. Brainstorm is a very good card. It has copies of Jace in it, and then you know some have Planeswalkers, some don't. Some have Charlotte's Agent and Ancestral Vision, some don't. You know, I feel like it does like a couple different things relatively well, and I guess it can find those cards to like do that thing well, but I don't think it does anything great. So to me, it feels like a deck that does like a bunch of different things relatively well, but not great. Like reminds me of the Rock, and I'm never running out the door to play the Rock. So that's what I always think of a deck that does like a couple of things well, and in turn, like this particular deck is just like a deck that you know you can fight it on some angles that like it really doesn't do very well against. Like a card that we saw as like a direct nightmare for this deck was like an in-play Jace that has resolved, or like an in-play Garrick. Oh God, an in-play Garrick Relentless. We saw. I don't know if you guys saw that match, but there was a match during the invitation on day one where Brian Brondowan cast a Garrick Relentless, and the game was just over. And it's like, so it has like these range of threats, and most of them cost more than 3 because Brepticate can't kill them. That they're just like playing a 4-drop. It's like, I can't win. It's over. And like that's embarrassing if it can't deal with something like that.
The thing that actually like really brought it home for me was watching. I'm trying to remember who it was. I know it was Dan Jordan versus, I think Dan Jordan versus Pat Cox. Yeah, and he's like Liliana grinding his opponent out and you know getting ready to deploy Jace. But so he's like +1ing Liliana and discarding Tarmogoyf while his opponent discards Swords to Plowshares. And I'm like, what are we even doing here? Like, why is this card in our deck? Like, we're making him discard Swords to Plowshares while discarding our Tarmogoyfs. Like, it boggled my mind. Like that could have just been like any card, and it would have been a strict improvement over what we were discarding. Like if we just had more lands in our deck, we'd be happier to be discarding them instead. Because at least like playing those was an option, whereas playing Tarmogoyf was not an option because our opponent has all of these brick swords in their hand. Like just miserable, 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 miserable.
So, if we're gonna cliff note Cedric's opinion, he hates all of the bug decks equally, or maybe he hates Shardless Agent like a little bit more, but he also hates not Shardless Agent. So,
I mean, I just want to like cut the
Go ahead.
Tarmogoyfs and play some Bloodbraid Elves and get real rowdy. That's my jam.
Like I fully understand why Charlotte's Agent is in the deck. It makes perfect sense, especially when it has Ancestral Vision. You know, they walked into the tournament, Jerry and Todd did, with, okay, a lot of people are going to play Bug. There's a lot of different ways for people to go about Bug, so we want to be able to be prepared for the Bug Mirror. And I think that's one of the best things that you can actually be doing in the Bug Mirror, outside of having, like, you know, a copy of Life in the Loam so you can Wasteland log people, and a copy of Garrick Relentless somewhere through the 75. Like, Charlotte's Agent plus Visions are fantastic ways to get a leg up in that Mirror match. But like you're doing all this work to go about like fighting the mirror, and like you know then you're getting like super inbred. And Patrick Sullivan and I were talking about on camera, as you look at some of these bug deck lists and as you are going to see them start to get like more and more inbred, how does this deck be like a deck like Zoo, where it's just like 2/3 3/3 3/3 3/3, like just efficient threats that can play like multiple guys in one turn, and it's like Abrupt Decay one of them, and I have Deathrite Shaman, and I have a Charlotte's Agent, and it's just like, you know, not all these decks have like Deed or whatever, so they're getting super inbred, and it's just like, there's just so many different ways that you can attack like this sort of deck. Again, because it does like a couple of different things pretty well, as you said, Steven, but it doesn't do anything great.
well, like real legacy decks losing to zoo decks is a long-standing tradition. Like there's a long history of, oh shit, he played a 1-mana 2/3. Like we're done here, boys.
Yeah,
I mean-
I don't know. I feel like you're still the bug decks can still like definitely get ahead when they're on the play just with like threatening stuff like turn 2 Liliana or whatever. So you're not even getting like, your matchup on the play will be awesome probably, yeah, but you'll still lose a bunch of games on the draw and it's just obnoxious.
I mean, all those not all of those bug decks play Liliana, and like all of those bug, I don't even consider Liliana to be even that good of a card in the deck.
I think it's
That's-
excellent. It's one of the best parts of the deck. I would not be
But
playing
not
Bug without
all of the
Liliana.
zoo decks exist. I don't know. I think that a zoo deck would crush this deck, but would not do terribly well in Legacy.
Sure, I agree with that. Like, I think that's reasonable.
I think storm decks probably do reasonably well against these decks too, but those don't like show up very often at all. Especially when you start putting Charlotte's Agents in and Ancestral Visions.
Yeah, that seems
Yeah.
not super good against the Storm deck.
Yeah,
Yep.
that doesn't seem like this deck is very good against combo, especially with like what a lot of players have done. And it makes sense because Bug is so popular, they've moved Forcible to the sideboard and like boarding in for their combo matchups. And it just seems like if they're doing that, they're just like basically saying like I'm down a game to combo. And I think that combo is going to be able to get like one of those two sideboarded games.
But who plays combo?
Yeah, it's dumb.
Doesn't happen.
Bunch of smarty pants.
Well, I mean, it's just Prozac in this top 8, man. Well, although I guess Elves is sort of a combo deck.
Yeah, I think that's fair to call it.
Alright. You guys have any other exciting deck-related comments before we move on to Theoretical Magic Rules Podcast side topic time? That's its official scientific name, by the way.
Oh,
It
okay,
made
that's
sense to
it.
me, so.
Yeah, that's the title. I mean, everyone in the chat is like giving me shit. You guys all know I'm a hater. You know that. Like, I understand like what the decks do and like respect them. I just would never play them. Like, I understand the appeal of playing those sort of decks and why they win. But I mean, I'm a hater. So, what if I just said I absolutely love this deck? You guys would ask me what's wrong with me.
This deck is great, and I'm really happy for all the people who did well with it. And
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful.
It does everything I want to do in Legacy. It casts Brainstorm. It casts Thoughtseize. It cascades into an awesome Tarmogoyf. I love it. Is that what you guys want me to say? I can
No,
do
man.
that.
Speak from the heart. That's all I ask.
I
Alright.
really like that we get like the top 8 deck lists side by side, so you get to see the 2 decks that the person chose, because it always makes sense. Like, of course the 4-color control guy played Esper Control. Duh. Of course Prozac played Storm with his blue-white flash deck with no threats. Like,
Yeah, you're right.
it
does make... Most of the time
like,
it does make sense. And then there's the
yeah.
last Invitational where Ali played 4-color Solar Flare and Burn. So...
Right. Well, we spent so long on our mana base for standard that time Legacy back.
Ship all the mountains.
He needed to know how many wolf runs he could fit into his 4-color deck. Like,
Legally only 4, I think. But
alright. Okay. Let's do our side topic. I want to talk about the mandatory trigger rules business. I was thinking about talking about this last week, but we didn't have time because there were a million actual Magic tournaments to talk about. This week we do have time, so I want to talk about it. I'm talking about primarily the difference under the current rules, where you have to specifically mention as a player any mandatory triggers, or they don't happen, versus the old rules, which is, I don't know, is it like 2 years now, or 1 year? Some not too long amount of time under the old rules in which both players were obligated to maintain the game state, and you needed to make sure that any must triggers occurred from both players' point of view. It was both players' responsibility, and those things would just happen regardless. So there were a couple instances that were like really startlingly obvious. I know when I was watching GP Toronto, a thing that came up several times was Emrakul. When you cast that monster from your hand, if you do not specifically say that you are going to take an extra turn, or refer to the extra turn trigger going on the stack, you will not get an extra turn, and then you will potentially lose the game. So that is one instance that comes up of, or another one that comes up quite a bit, or has come up quite a bit, is if you attack with Geist of Saint Traft and you do not specifically note that you are going to get a 4/4 Angel, you will not get a 4/4 Angel, and that makes your guy significantly worse. So that's a good example of the current mandatory rules trigger policy. So I wanted to know how you guys feel about that versus the past policy. Like, they both have upsides and downsides. We'll probably get into that in a little bit as we talk about it. But how do you guys feel about the current policy, and what do you want to see moving forward? We will start with Cedric, since we have been so Cedric deprived.
That was the worst thing you could have done. As far as me. Because I feel so strongly about this issue. I just said I was a hater. How do you think I feel about this?
Well, I mean, there are multiple policies. You can't hate them both. Or, I mean, I guess
That's
you could.
actually pretty easy, yeah.
But it's not, like, super productive to do, so it's kind of a shitty answer.
True.
I mean, I like the Emrakul one. I found out about this weekend, and my jaw just dropped that actually happened. That can actually happen.
Oh, yeah. I saw it
like,
happen 3 times on day 1 of GP Toronto. Like, I saw Emrakul cast 3 times, and only one of them, the person got an extra turn. Like,
Yeah, it's just
33% on getting an extra turn when hardcasting your Emrakul.
Yeah, like you cast it or whatever, and it's really it's like really insane, right? Like everyone, whenever they actually have the ability to like tap like their tri-lines or they're just like cast Emrakul, they like cast it and they like have like the shitty grin on their faces. They like go to untap and attack, and their opponent's just like, "Yo, what are you doing?" And it's like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? What am I doing?" Like, that just strikes me as completely ridiculous that like that can actually happen, because it's like very clear like what's going on. Like, I know that we don't play Magic by intent, and I know that we're supposed to announce our triggers and what have you, but I don't know, like I just hate that like now people are just going to be jockeying for position and trying to just like trick their opponent like missing things. And man, I really hope that like my out is that like when he my out is when he casts his Emrakul that I cannot possibly in a million years beat, that he doesn't remember his turn. That to me is not Magic at all, and that's why I hate it. It's just like your opponent plays like Geist St. Trapped, and it's like, well, I hope he's brain dead. I really hope he's stupid, and he just doesn't ever put an Angel in play, because that's how I'm gonna beat him. When like reality, it's just like, oh, guys, like yeah, I'm like F'd or whatever, like I can't win. It's like a huge problem for me, and it's just like it just doesn't feel like Magic to me at all. I know that like in Grand Prix Boston Worcester, I corrected my opponent multiple times, like with his triggers, and it's just like, I know that like in Grand Prix Philadelphia, we were like in a super tight game, and like a guy like made this attack with a Rune Wing where it was attacking me on purpose to make sure that like it would die and draw a card, and he's just like, like he like, goes in the tanker for whatever for like infinite, and he's like attacked by Rune Wing, and I'm like, yeah, block, and the guy like goes like to his second main phase, and he's like tanking or whatever, and I'm just like, so you ever gonna draw that card, or like what's going on? And he's like, oh man, thank you so much. And it's like, if it was a Yume, obviously I wouldn't say anything, because like it's up to his discretion on if he wants to draw that card if it's a Yume. But I hate that like as the card is printed, and they printed it this way on purpose to say when it dies you draw a card, and now it's like, oh well, I mean, you draw a card if you remember to draw a card, but if not, then you don't. And it's just like that kind of jockeying. I think that we're like basically taking away from what like is important in Magic, which is actually like playing your cards right, and like like knowing how to build your deck and how to sideboard, instead of just like all of this like BS. And now there's like all these judge calls, and then there's going to be like all of these insane arguments of just like, well, like I didn't do too much. Like there was only like 3 seconds that passed. I swear. Like I was going to take the turn with Emrakul. I promise. Like stuff like that, where it's just, that's not what Magic is about at all. So that's how I feel about it.
Sometimes you hardcast Emrakul and you have no cards left in your library.
You were just planning not to take your next turn?
And you just forget?
Yeah.
Didn't know, sorry.
Maybe that's true.
I don't, like, my opinion on all of these rules changes, dealios, is that you should play the game properly. Like, regardless of what the rules are, just learn what the rules are and play the game properly. And so I don't have a great amount of sympathy for people being critical and whining, etc., about the rules and how it's ruining Magic, because I think those people should just play the game properly, and the rules don't stop you from doing that.
Yep.
I still sort of hate the rules, though, just a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm there with you, Cedric.
Alright, well, we'll go to Glenn, and then I'll, like, rebuy, because there's more stuff I want to discuss
Sure.
about this.
Personally, I like the current rule more than any of the previous ones, I think, where you just literally have to declare everything in order to get it. Just because like all it really requires is for you to know your card and like know the rule. And I think we're in like currently sort of the period where people aren't really used to it, so it'll get goofed a fair bit. But I'm not really sweating that going long. I don't think that'll be like a recurring problem. But beyond people just messing it up. But like the issue with all of the other ones is making my opponent do anything to help me play is like in and of itself miserable for both. It's like the Shrine of Burning Rage is obviously like the example everyone uses. Like picking up your opponent's Shrine of Burning Rage to kill yourself was like the worst feeling ever. Like no one actually wanted to be doing that, and even opponents who were the recipients of that like didn't feel good about it. So I really didn't like that, and I don't mind just being held responsible for my actions. Like if I forget a trigger or whatever, like I messed up. I did something stupid. It's cool. Like if it was something I was very much supposed to do, or like a result of confusion, then I probably should have been more clear. It's not that big a deal. And I think people really just want everything to like go perfectly and nobody to like ever make a mistake, et cetera, et cetera. But like that's not how Magic is at all. Like people make mistakes literally all the time. If they didn't, the game would be not even remotely entertaining. So I mean, I would just hold yourself responsible for your actions. And as far as like getting people on triggers, I've personally agreed to like, a gentleman's set of rules amongst like friends. Like when I'm in a tournament, like I don't want to be having to call a judge to like get one of my friends on something like an Emrakul or something. That's just awful. But like, I'll make that offer. But if I get no cert and they're like, you want a jailhouse, then I guess like I have to jailhouse them because they're going to jailhouse me. And that's how I regard the situation as far as against people I don't know. Like if I don't know that my opponent's going to cut me breaks, then I can't afford to cut him breaks. Like I'm playing the game because the game has rules. Like it's just a set of actions within a set of rules. That's all a game is. So if our rules require us to do things in a specific way, then you only get the benefits when you actually do them correctly. Like,
See, the thing I hate is that everyone goes towards the Shrine of Burning Rage thing, of like, you have to like remind them to take up their Shrine of Burning Rage, and I put that on Wizards as designing the card poorly.
sure.
More than anything,
I mean, that
Go
was
ahead.
definitely them. Like their philosophy was wrong during the period when those cards were getting designed. Like we've gone through like 3 or 4 trigger rules changes over like the past 5 years or something like that. I don't know. So like it's very easy that like there are just windows of cards that were designed assuming like one set of rules would be in place, and then obviously like that's not the case. The rules changed again. So on some level, like yeah, that's clearly there are flaws going on in design because they're not psychic. They couldn't have possibly designed cards knowing the rules that we have now. So I think in those cases we kind of just have to like sweat what we're dealt, but without going back and just irradiating everything that has like a mandatory or non-mandatory to whatever you want it to be. I think like the current policy is the most reasonable compromise.
Like, I think it's just stupid because like I don't understand why they took away like the word may on cards. Like you may use this ability, or you may put a counter on Shrine of Burning Rage, or you may put a 4/4 Angel into play. And like they make the argument of like, well, like why would I maybe want to put a 4/4 Angel into play? Like that's why the card's sweet. Like that's what it's there for. It's like there are definitely situations where you would not want to put a counter on Shrine of Burning Rage, where you would not want to put would not want to put a 4/4 Angel into play with Geist of Saintcraft. Like so, why did they take away like that function of the card? And now like that doesn't make any sense to me. And so it feels like we're being punished because they took May off of cards.
Sure, but I think like in those cards specifically, like they were planning for us to be operating under the rules where like you do just force everything to happen. Like if my opponent missed his shrine, I would tick it up for him. That's why that's not a May, like stuff like that. And it was just their like I think where they were coming from was that it would simplify things and that like people aren't making like a ton of decision points. There's just like this happens at the start of every turn. And obviously like for Moto, it's pretty easy to integrate that as well. Like things go a lot faster there. I don't know if that has any influence on their decisions in templating the rules, but I can imagine it's like zero influence. It has to be something, right?
All right. Well, I know that traditionally, like under the old rules, the situation in which you felt terrible was when you had to play your opponent's cards to kill you, which, as Glenn said, happened with Shrine of Burning Rage. It happened with every card that said must instead of may, because when cards say may, you are under no obligation to inform them. You're just like, well, that doesn't happen. Taste it. But when a card said must under the old rules, you were obligated to make them do that and kill you, which was unpleasant. However, I feel like under the new rules, there are a lot of situations where both players clearly understand what's going on, but it just doesn't happen because one doesn't communicate something to the opponent. Like someone brought up in chat, for example, you attack with Pyreheart Wolf, your opponent has no creatures in play, you don't say anything, then they play Restoration Angel. You've missed your Pyreheart Wolf trigger, now they can block. Like, does that mean you're supposed to announce every single trigger, like even when it clearly doesn't matter because there's a card that they printed in the last 20 years which could make it matter? Because that's like a real issue. Like that's going to change the way the game's played. And that's, I don't know, something to consider. But anyway, the question I wanted to ask you guys was, which version of the rules do you prefer, and if neither, where would you like to go in your ideal world going forward for tournament rules? We will start with Glenn. Which version do you prefer? I think you basically answered this, but
Yeah, I
where
pretty
do
much
you want to
did. Like,
go ideally
I
for you?
don't mind people just holding me responsible for knowing the rules and what my cards do. Like if I have to say trigger every time I attack with a Pyreheart Wolf, like that's very much within like my ability as a Magic player. I can remember to do that. Like the entire miracle mechanic is in and of itself much more difficult mechanically than triggering any card in play. So like where that's a weird place to draw the line where you just have to like remember this stuff. But like it's if I mess it up, it's a lesson I'll learn. Like Emrakul, if I was some guy who like played as Emrakul and didn't trigger it, like the first time that I got by that, I'm probably never getting got by it again. Like now I know I just have to say Emrakul trigger. That's just how I cast that card now. I've added it to my set of behavior. Like I don't have a problem with it. It's not a ridiculous thing to ask for more clarity in a game of Magic. Like I even accept people tapping cards or just like knocking the table or something like that. Totally reasonable. Like whatever kind of shortcut you want to do, that's fine. Just develop it and add it to how you play Magic and move on.
Ooh, I'll be back for that one. All right, Steven, which version of the rules do you prefer, and where do you want to go in the future?
I am okay with this version of the rules. I think it's completely reasonable to hold people accountable for their own triggers. I think there is a real problem with this version of the rules when people miss triggers in a beneficial way for them, which like you can do. Sometimes missing one of your triggers is actually going to end up being good for you. Like, what if you attack with Fireheart Wolf, miss your trigger, whoops, they block with Restoration Angel and you kill it. Like, you just missed your trigger, you changed the game state to something that isn't legal anymore, and it was advantageous to you. I think that that's a problem. I think the goal should be just to have the game state be legal and have people playing the cards as they should be. And I think that having both players cooperate to do that is like going to cause it to happen more. And if you feel bad because you have to make your opponent's cards kill you, like maybe play a deck which doesn't lose to idiots. Like, come on, pick it up.
All right, Cedric, which version do you prefer, and where do you want to go in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm okay with where we're at because, I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, as far as where we're going to go in the future, I wish we would just go back to, cards having you may on them, like, that should have you may. Like, I think that we would be better off going back to that. And I'm not saying that all cards should have you may on them. Like, some of them should probably have, like, mandatory effects, and then some should have you may on them. I think that one thing that, one format that I always think about when there was, like, a lot of you may triggers was a Kamigawa block with like the spirits, and like Teller of Tales is the one that I think about the most. Obviously, it's just like I like. What would you say, Steven?
Obviously.
Yeah, just like Teller of Tales, you may tap or untap something, and if your opponent forgot, they forgot, and if they didn't, then they didn't. But I liked how those cards played out, and I liked how if your opponent like forgot to use their trigger, like on those cards, that like wasn't that was like okay. Like there were a lot of triggers in that format. And I liked how that format played because of that. Whereas like if all those would have been like, can you imagine that format if all of those were like mandatory triggers, like it is now with the rulings? It would just been like it seems like it would just be a logistical nightmare. I don't know.
Well, one thing that I like about mandatory triggers or not having to announce mandatory triggers, is that if you do a thing, then that thing will happen and you're not required to point it out to your opponent. Like, for example, with Exalted, if you attack and you don't point out to your opponent that your creature is Exalted, then your creature just isn't Exalted under the current rules.
Yeah.
So, like under the old rules, you could just attack and then that thing would happen, and if they forgot that you had Exalted creatures and blocked with a creature that died to your guy because he was Exalted, well, they're a moron and their creature is dead. But under these rules, if they forgot that your creature had Exalted because you didn't point it out and blocked with their guy, well, your guy just doesn't have Exalted. So, like, I guess your guy dies as well, which is a little bit awkward.
Yeah, it's like weird, right? Like some people used to delay the exalted trap or whatever. They would just attack and not announce anything and see
Yeah.
it's kind of like to check how smart your opponent is. And thinking about it now, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? That's kind of hard to say. Like, should exalted be a you may effect versus a mandatory effect? Again, it's kind of difficult to say. I like that aspect of the game where you weren't I like that aspect of the game where you got to I guess secret attack them with a 6/5 instead of a 2/1 chump check, as it were. But I don't know if that's
Why
a
do you
good thing
like
for the game or
that?
not.
Well,
That's just like a reading check. That's literally asking your opponent, "Are you literate?" You can sit down before a match and just ask them if they're literate. You don't have to have Exalted work a certain way to learn.
it feels like to me, I don't know how it feels to other people, but it feels like that's exactly the same thing as making my opponent tick their cards up. I'm just making my opponent keep track of the game state. I have to keep track of the game state for my opponent. I have to be attack you with
Yes.
this. Do you know what all my cards do? Were you aware this thing is triggering? Like, I don't know. My opponent should just know what the cards do. I don't want to have to remind him what all my cards do every time I attack him. I just want to attack him, and if he's a moron, then that's fine. And if he's not a moron, that's fine too. Like, I'm not expecting to, I'm not sad because I lost a lot of value, because, yeah, most people who know what their cards do, will know what your cards do, and will just play
Yeah.
Magic. But I don't understand why I have to remind them every turn.
Well, the thing is, the way I'm hearing the way your argument actually kind of sounds I already know that I'm literate, so I shouldn't have to make my opponent, or I should be able to make my opponent prove it. He should have to prove that he can read cards as well as I can in order to win the game.
But that's a huge part of Magic, though.
Well, yeah, why do you want that? I don't think that's necessarily sure, I want to beat people who are illiterate. I would prefer not to lose to them. It will feel bad, but I don't consider it essential.
I don't know. I think that's a
and a
very
literate guy
large
can bonfire
percentage
me to death, whatever.
of the game is people knowing what cards do.
I mean, it's strange, right? Because you can just bring up a million different cases of things, and
Yeah.
I think that you would feel one way. I think you would feel one way about one, and a different way about the other. And for me, it's strange now because when I was 20 and 21 and PTQing in college, I was just a cutthroat maniac. Where if an opponent missed a trigger, I would just jump all over him. Yeah, that passed. You're stupid. Are you done? That was me. And now it's just no, I just don't do that. It's just yeah, that Rune Wing, you're probably going to draw that, Annihilating Fire off of that card. I wouldn't want you to forget, so you could draw that card and kill me with it, because that would suck for you.
Yeah.
Whereas, when I was, 18 and 19, and, my opponent missed something, and, my friend was yo, bro, tell her tales, I'd be what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you say something? So, it's interesting because, it seems it's super case by case, and it's also interesting because it seems what are you trying to accomplish with, being that guy? For me, where I'm at in my Magic career, it's I'm a streamer, I'm a commentator, I am representing the game for newer players and lesser players and other players. So it's am I going to be this cutthroat douchebag or whatever when I'm trying to build my stream and we're trying to build this show and it's man, that Cedric guy's a real prick. I'm not going to watch his show and all this stuff. It's so case by case that putting in remembering how you want to feel about this. I honestly feel it's just different from actual every person and every situation.
I guess I don't know how you guys can think it's bullshitty that people get called on the Emrakul thing versus don't getting called on the blocking with Exalted. How can you want to be able to sneak attack people but not want to be able to make them miss their Emrakuls at the same time? They both demonstrate a similar. Both of those cases demonstrate a similar, just basic understanding of how the cards work.
I want the cards to do what they say on the card. Like, if I cast Emrakul and it says you take an extra turn after this one, I want to take an extra turn after this one, and I want my opponent to take an extra turn every time they cast that card. And, like, if I cannot take an extra turn if I don't say anything, I want my card to be like, you may take an extra turn after this one. That's what I want to have happen. So, like,
That's
if my
the exact same
Exalted thing, like, if it occurs every single time that I attack, I don't want to have to be like, it's occurring this time. Also, every other time that I attack, it is also occurring. And if it only occurs when I say something, I want it to say, like, you may do this thing. Like, I don't want to get my opponent with, like, cunning things. I just want the cards to do what they say they do. That's all that I want
Okay.
to have happen.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can get
behind
that.
That's exactly how I feel too. Go ahead, Steven.
I was just agreeing, like everybody else.
So the
The
one
Emrakul is
more
just mind-blowing to me.
the one more question I wanted to ask is, do you think someone should feel bad for calling a judge on their opponent if they don't announce a trigger, like under the current rules?
No.
Yeah, okay. We'll start with Glenn.
Yeah,
So
like,
you think you're just, like, totally justified every single time they don't announce a trigger? Because that's, like, the correct thing
I
to
mean,
do, right?
I've at a like non-competitive thing, basically like PTQs, like no one gets away with anything against me. Like I'm there, I paid my $30. Like I came to like win that tournament. That is literally the only prize in the tournament. So if you mess up, I am calling you on it. So if you're playing against me in a PTQ and you do anything even remotely construable, it's like missing a trigger or whatever, just be aware. Like I think that's very reasonable because someone could just as easily hold a similar thing against me. Like the only way I can make up for the value I lose from my own mistakes is by holding other people to theirs. If I wanted to play with a handicap, I would start at 19. That's like, that's not why I'm here. In other settings, like in the open series or whatever, you know, like if I get paired against someone and they like mess up something relatively tiny, like they play their spell, like tap their lands, and then they're like, oh, I'd like to tap this way or whatever. After I'm like already said okay on the spell, something like that, I'm like, all right, buddy, but like you only get one, just keep it clean. Like these are reasonable requirements, I think, you know. I just expect people to play at a similar level of cleanliness and like technical acumen as myself.
So for
If I can
you,
do it, they can. I am
so
not a genius. Like
for you, what you're saying is it depends on how much you want to win the tournament?
That's exactly what it sounds like.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Glad
Like
you said that.
I am. In those cases, like it is partially a negative like play experience. But like if I'm in a more casual environment, I will not hold people to the rules as strictly because I would not expect to be held to the rules as strictly. But
That's a more that's a more casual environment for you.
yes,
It's not a more casual environment for them.
I understand that I cannot interpret like how they hold things. And like in the match, if somebody prison rules me on something, I will immediately change my tune. Like if those are the rules we're on, those are the rules we're on. But generally speaking, I assume that most people are going to be a little more easygoing about it. And the only times I don't take any chances are when I know that I don't have any chances to give. Otherwise, I don't mind being a quote nice guy unquote.
The correct strategy is tit for tat starting positive. Game theorists have discovered this.
Is this
I mean,
like Prisoner's Dilemma style game theory that we're...
Well, if you talk about like what I said before when I like, you know, I'm paired against a friend and I'm like, hey, do you just want to be a gentleman about triggers? Like I don't have to announce my Geist or whatever like that kind of thing. You know, we could agree to that, and then as soon as I attack with a Geist, he can just be like, okay, take two. Like that's legal. He can just scum me like that. But like I made this like trusting offer that we'll just both recognize each other as human beings and not do that. So, you know, on some level, just to make my own life easier, like.
So like as soon as they screw you over, you should start screwing them back.
And that's what Magic's all about.
Okay, so like
I mean, there's just really no other way to like get like. Obviously,
was it
be nice
baseball or was it poker or was it mathematicians or what? But like in the last 20 years or so, we have discovered this thing called EV, and it's this thing which we use everywhere. And then Magic players have like gotten hold of their EV. Poker players, like the very successful, extremely like dominating the world, making millions of dollars, when they make decisions on poker based on EV, they are generally making decisions based on life EV, which means that at this point they've gotten to the point where they can analyze a game state and put it in context of like other things that are going on in their life, how they're feeling, whether they're happy or not, and make their expected value decision mathematically based on that. Like, I could make $1 million tonight, but it would make me like feel this amount of bad, so I don't want to do it. Can be a plus EV decision in a like equity-based situation. So I feel like a lot of people who don't understand that concept look at this and think that they have to punish their opponents for missing their triggers because it is the plus EV play, like that gets you the most equity. But I feel like those people are saying that because they just have an undeveloped concept of what equity can be. Because I think there is a lot of equity in having a positive relationship with the person you're playing Magic with. Like, we're here to have fun, we want to have fun, we're playing, etc. And there's also positive equity just in keeping the game such that you can like go back and forth like that. There's like if you drive each other to cheat in a game, you can both get disqualified, and there's negative equity from that. So there is real positive equity in keeping both of you in a positive mindset, trying to play the game positively. So
Sure.
I don't know. That was sort of like a weird, long-winded side sort of point. But the thing I basically want to say is that generally you should be cutting your opponent's slack on this because it's generally going to make both of you feel better and make Magic more enjoyable to play. And the second that they show you they're not going to do it to you, you should like think they're a dick and tell your friends they're dicks and start screwing them over.
That is basically how I feel as well.
Yeah, and like that's like it makes sense in people's heads, and it's also just like mathematically that is the correct equity play.
Yeah. Oh, I do want to point out someone noted that some don't get mad about getting called on their missed triggers. I don't think anyone should get mad about getting called on their missed triggers. Like, if you're casting like a 6-mana spell for 5 mana and I tell you to tap an extra land, you wouldn't be mad at me. Like, the rules of the game say tap 6 lands. Like, if the rules of the game say announce your triggers, just like announce your fucking trigger. Like, it's not hard. You know?
Yeah, don't get mad, just like get even.
Play by the rules,
enjoy
man.
announcing every trigger perfectly for the rest of the game, friend opponent, and also for the rest of the event, as I tell your future opponents that you're a dick.
Are you gonna like follow that guy around and be like, this guy?
Just
Yeah.
like on the parent sheet, circle, like
Circle,
dick.
dick. Yeah. Scumbag cheater. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
the
it's just-
Dropbox is for, bro.
I don't know. I was thinking about this.
Follow that guy around.
I was thinking about this earlier before I go to Cedric, but like, I almost always feel bad calling a judge on my opponent because I'm a moron. But I don't think I ever feel bad when an opponent calls a judge on me, unless it's something like completely ridiculous. Unless they're like, Judge, he's playing mountains, and it's like, okay, like. But like, if I did something and it was wrong, like, I don't feel mad that my opponent like called a judge, because I am never afraid of the judge being there.
Yeah.
So like I'm just happy. I don't
I
know.
actually like I can't recall ever like actually getting mad at an opponent for calling a judge on me. Like, I can't think of anything that's been an incident. And I know like I've called judges on myself a lot. I've probably called a judge on my own actions more times than a judge has been called upon me for them. I know like, at GP Tampa, like a few years ago, I was playing at Steve State and I called a judge on myself twice for looking at extra cards, one of which Steve didn't even see. I just told him that I had seen an extra card. He's like, oh, okay. And the judge gets there and he's like, what happened? And Steve's like, he says he saw an extra card? I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. So, I mean, the judges are literally there to just fix things that go wrong, you know? Everyone rants about things going wrong in a game of Magic. Like, the judges are your tools for fixing that. So you should use them when you can. That is their purpose. It is literally the reason that they are there.
Yeah, I mean, it's Glenn, I don't fault you for your perception and what you want to do. Like, again, as I said, when I was 20 and 21, and I thought I was hot shit and qualifying for Pro Tours in college and all this stuff, and everyone thought I was really good. Whatever, I did whatever it took to win, and I know that if I can think of like myself when I was 20 and 21, and if they would have made this rules announcement of like everything is like a you may, oh my god, I would have been so happy. and just looking to just get people at every corner. So, like, I completely understand, and I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but, like, I completely understand, like, where someone would be coming from about, you know, like, these are the rules now, and, like, follow them. And, like, where I'm at now in my life, like, I just feel differently about, like, this sort of thing. Again, it's just like, there's never going to be a clear-cut, like, right way to feel about this, because, like, people just have different values about how they feel about this sort of thing. Like, where I'm at now in my Magic career, like, I hate that things are this way, and, like, you know, like, I would never, ever, like, the Emrakul thing, I would never do that to someone. Never in my entire life would I even consider, like, if I am, like, playing, I swear to God, if I was, like, playing in the finals of a Pro Tour, and, like, it's, like, Game 5, and, like, the guy said next turn, like, he cast Emrakul, he, like, untaps and goes to attack, I wouldn't be like, yo, bro, sucks, man, but that trophy's mine.
I don't think I honestly, I can say I definitely would not do that in the finals of a Pro Tour, but in my bubble match for the top 8, that might be a different story.
It's case by case, right? Like, it's completely case by case. It's like, you know, like, let's say you're like 10-2 on like day 2 of PT, and like, you know, you feeling pretty good, and you think you got a good shot to like make top of the Pro Tour, like your constructed deck, and it's like game 3, guy peels Evercruel, and like you're fucking mad or whatever. It's just like, you were dead next turn, you piece of shit. And the guy's like, sorry, man, like drew Evercruel, cast it, untaps, goes to attack you, and you're like, oh yeah? How about this? You don't get your extra turn, and now you are dead. You scumbag piece of shit top decker. And it's just like, this is just what happens. And it's just like, I just hate everything about it. It just feels grimy to me. It just feels grimy. And I don't fault someone for, like, you know, they can just make the argument, like, dude, I was just playing by the rules. It's like, big deal, I'm just playing by the rules. Like, he needs to announce his trigger. But again, like, it's just case by case. Like, and you just made, like, the perfect point. Like, I wouldn't do that in the finals of the Pro Tour, but I would do that, like, in my bubble match for the Pro Tour. It's like, why isn't it just always one way? Why wouldn't it just always be one way for you? And, like, I'm not calling you a bad person. It's just, like, that's the thing. Like, why isn't it just always going to be one way always, then? Like, why does it matter that it's top 8 of a Pro Tour versus the finals of a Pro Tour, like Game 5 with the entire world watching? Why would it ever matter? Like, why should it be different?
Why shouldn't it be different? Like, they're just different cases.
But it's the same, like, like, card and ruling. Like, situation shouldn't matter. Like, it shouldn't be pass interference, like, if a team is up 20 and if a team is down 20. And it's like, oh, well, this time, since, like, you guys are getting crushed, it's not pass interference this time to put you guys in the red zone and maybe spur a comeback.
So you're saying, like, it's unreasonable that, like, for refs to be lazy when it's, like, 60-0 versus when it's, like, 30-30? Like...
Yeah, I do say that's unreasonable, yes.
I mean, I think people would disagree with you in a lot of instances. Like, I think that's like
they just shouldn't do their job correctly if a team is up a million or like, the game is tied.
I mean, I personally don't feel that way, but not really, at least. But I mean, I'm just saying the general perception is like those are different situations, and they have different requirements. There will certainly be different consequences. Like if the refs blow a call in a blowout game, like no one's really going to care. But if they blow a call in a very close game, then everyone will care. So how do you like settle that discrepancy? Like on the hand of the refs, like that's what they care about. They literally only care about like what the response will be, that's the only variable. Otherwise, everything else is the same, right?
No, I mean this is why they're going through the steps that they're taking to like instigate like replay and sports and stuff, is because they want to make sure they get the call right 100% of the time. It's not situation dependent. It's just like this is the like it's not situation dependent. It's just like this is what happens and this is just how it should be.
Yeah.
I think that that's the goal of any rule set, is to make sure that the rule set is unaffected by the game, like which game it is. If that makes sense. Which game it is, what state the game is in. Like,
I think that objectively good rulemaking is generally good. Like I agree with said that like I think refs should just do those games the same. I'm just saying like the public perception is not that refs should do those games the same. Like, if you take feature matches in Magic, like video matches, people think those should literally be judged differently from the other matches in the field. Why? Because they're watching them. Like, that is why they want them judged differently.
I don't think that that's true. I think people would like judging in a feature match to be at every match of Magic. Like, I think they want every single match in the event to have the sort of judging that the feature match has. I think that's what the viewers want.
I mean, that is a completely unrealistic expectation, if so. But currently,
it's like absolutely unrealistic.
Yeah, as someone who sits, you know, and has to listen to this stuff a lot, you know, people are just constantly like, why didn't a judge fix that? Like, why didn't anyone catch that? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, no one, like, every other match in the room, somebody did this exact same thing. And the only reason you know about this one is you're watching it. Like, does that mean that it should be judged differently? Like, no, it doesn't really. But I think we're getting to the state where it will.
I think you're missing the point. I don't think
No,
it's
I
about judgment.
understand that.
Okay.
Like, the thing is, those people legitimately don't care. Like, if they can't see a game, whether, like, objectively, they're like, I wish that game I can't see was judged or whatever, like, they don't actually care because they can't see the actual result of the system. That's all I'm saying. Like,
All right. No, Steven, don't abuse your cat. All right, I think we're.
Cat around. What is wrong with you?
Adam's throwing his pet around.
No!
This isn't my pet friend. This is. I don't know if you're aware. This is a stuffed dog. I mean, it's very cute, but it's not alive.
Looks alive.
But I think we should wind it down for today. We are we're running a little long on our show. We got good mileage out of our theoretical topic. You all did good work. So let's do shout-outs. Steven is hiding in his hoodie cave. Steven, do you want to shout out first, and then we will get out of here?
I remembered. I want to say last week we actually had a show. Some of you might have missed it, but we did it on Tuesday. And if you didn't catch it, you can catch it and all of the recordings of all of our shows on www.gamestatemtg.blogspot.com. I'll write that in chat for you. Otherwise, like, fun show. Thanks for watching, etc. You guys know what you're called.
All right, Glenn, shout out.
yeah, I don't have anything more to do in 2013, which is a pretty nice feeling. I'm going to go to,
you have nothing to
or
do?
2012, sorry,
Okay.
2012, God. I'm already looking forward to the next year so much. I will be back to work in 2013, taking 2012 off. My last actual work day is tomorrow, where I film Above the Curve for Star City, but then I don't have to do anything else pretty much until I think like January, the second week in January, something like that. So it's going to be sweet. And I'll be here next weekend, or next week. I have no plans to miss it. I'll be in Florida, so that'll be a nice change of pace. But we'll see if I can webcam you guys a wonderful beach or something like that. Probably not.
Yeah. That would be very nice of you.
All right, Cedric, shout out.
For me, I do apologize for being late this particular show. Somehow it takes me 2 hours to get from the airport to my car, which is completely unreasonable in Seattle. So that was a nice afternoon I've had to deal with. But I'll be streaming this week. One of these days, I'm going to be flying to Indianapolis, either Wednesday or Thursday. So I will be streaming definitely tomorrow, and then either Wednesday, maybe Thursday, maybe both. I'm going to be streaming the Magic Online Cube, I think, is like going up on Wednesday, I believe, with all the power. So we'll be doing some of that action. Yeah, that's going to be a blast. So we'll be doing some of that action. And then I'll be at GP Indy, and then I'll be driving back to Ohio to see my parents after that tournament. I haven't been home in 2 years, but who cares about any of that stuff? I got my new playmat in the mail. I got Crashman in the mail, and I don't know if you can see it, but I'm super happy.
That's actually pretty sweet.
Hold it up a bit.
Hold up?
Yeah, a bit more. Yeah.
I got Crashman. I got Crashman in the mail, and I have to have the rest of the Mega Man 2 bosses made. So Inked Playmats is the one that did this for me. And yeah, I am super stoked. I got this mail when I got back this morning, or excuse me, when I got back for this show. And yeah, we're having more done. So this is going to be my playmat for the Grand Prix. I'm super excited.
One of my favorite things about being at GP Toronto was I got to see all these people putting out their sweet playmats, and by and large, the people who didn't have playmats were the people who were just like stone masters. And everyone who I'd like never heard of would just like sit down and smooth out their unique playmat, and then Reed would just like sit down beside them and play on the table. And it's just like, yeah, that's welcome to the Magic tournament.
Yeah, guy without a mat is the guy who's really good.
Yeah, you should be afraid of that dude without a mat, man.
Yeah.
The dude with the personalized card sleeves and playmat, not a problem. Anyway, thanks for watching. We will be having a show next week, although there may be drinking involved and it may be slightly less serious than most other shows. I don't know if that's possible, but we will endeavor to make it so. But there will be a show next week. There will not be a show in 2 weeks. We will go over that again next week. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. We will see you again next week.